We're in Geneva at La Fabrique du Temps, and we'll be discovering the brand new Louis Vuitton Tambour, the new contender in the luxury sports watch category. You certainly know Louis Vuitton for fashion, leather goods, and products related to travel. The brand for over 20 years now has also developed its watchmaking expertise with core collection models such as the Tambour or high-end watches, including impressive automata. Make sure to look at the movie on the topic on our channel. But things are changing at Louis Vuitton watches. Now, under the direction of Jean Arnault, the brand is about to reposition itself. More watchmaking content, less fashion-oriented watches, models positioned higher in the spectrum. And it starts today with a brand new take on the Tambour, with a sporty-chic style, a slender case, a thin movement, and of course, an integrated design. We're meeting with Jean Arnault, Director of Watches at Louis Vuitton. We will talk about the new strategy and mostly the instrument of this strategy, the new Louis Vuitton Tambour. Jean, first of all, thank you for having us in La Fabrique du Temps in Geneva. Before we talk about the new Tambour, I think there's some things to say about the strategy. That watch represents a big step for you. So can you tell us where you've been before and where do you want to go?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for coming. I'm very happy to have you here and show you again probably the most important launch that we're doing at Louis Vuitton for the last 20 years at least, since the launch of Tambour initially in 2002. And again, we're going to talk about product, but as you said, the strategy is very important because for us, not only are we completely changing our league in terms of attention to detail, but we're also changing our philosophy towards watches in general, where at first we were thinking, well, watches is one category of the big brand and has to respond to all of the different activations that the big brand might happen every 6 months or so, and which is a good strategy in itself. But the issue with watchmaking in all of that is making a watch takes a lot more time than making a fashion collection or anything like that, which means that you have to cut corners in order to make a product that fits within that time frame. Mm-hmm. So we decided to basically put an end to all of that and now focused on really true watchmaking, like we've been doing in our high watchmaking collection historically, but for all our collections.
So basically no more fashion-oriented watches, but pure player kind of watches?
Exactly.
Is that the idea for where you want to go actually?
Yes, correct. I mean, the idea for us is really to position ourselves as a pure player in the watch industry. And most of all, never cut corners in terms of product quality and what we're trying to achieve. And so what you'll see in terms of finishing, what you'll see in terms of movement construction, what you'll see in terms of really the full 360 package of our products will be thought through in the same ethos as La Fabrique du Temps does in the high watchmaking segment. So all of our watches in the future will be considered as high watchmaking.
The idea was to keep the Tambour spirit alive for an important reason, I guess, because it's, as you said, it's emblematic of Louis Vuitton.
I was saying it's probably the most important launch that we've had in the last 21 years now. And we are very lucky to have what I humbly call an icon in the watch industry. It was born in 2002 and we haven't really touched it ever since. It had a little bit of a flaws here and there that we've tried to address in our new pieces. Obviously the thickness was a bit of an issue and that was the first point of focus around the new product. And the idea was to take the historical codes of Tambour, when you see it across a room, what do you see first? It's the shape of the case and everything like that. Keep that essence, but bring it to the taste of, let's say, 2023, meaning much thinner case, obviously the integrated bracelet, get rid of the lugs, and have something which is a very good size, both for men and women.
So first of all, you're entering the luxury sports watch category, the integrated bracelet category. Before we move on to at least talk a bit about the watch, because that's important, but why that category?
We're not the first ones to have come out with an integrated steel sports watch, that's for sure. We're not going to be the last ones either. But I think what's mostly important with the watch that we're launching now is everything around it. We're not only launching an integrated steel sports watch, but we're most of all removing everything else from the collection. And this is the only watch that will be in our collection coming in the future. And that's why we wanted to call it the Tambour. Nothing, fancy around it, just back to the essence, back to the core of what our watchmaking has started to be, and really try to build that for the future.
A few words about the watch. So if you could present it to us about the key points of the watch.
Well, first of all, there was a few things that were obviously very important, and the first thing I want to say is the wearability of the bracelet. For me, it was really paramount to ensure that we obviously have a metal bracelet integrated directly into the case, but also that the bracelet be super comfortable. There's this, there's this sort of test that I always do, which is how far will it actually bend on the other side, and that was kind of the very mathematical element as to what kind of suppleness do we want for the bracelet, And there's also a lot of things that we've engineered, a bit like what car designers or car engineers do. When you close the door, it has a specific sound and everything. The idea for us was the same. The sound that it does when you move it like that, the feeling you have when you put your finger below.
Very tactile.
Exactly. And the bracelet was the true point of attention, because if we were going to launch an integrated steel sports watch, we had to do a very qualitative bracelet and ensure that everything, all the chamfers, all the bevelings, everything like that was carefully thought after. And I actually have
even the reflections.
Even the reflections. And I actually have a small anecdote for you on this one. One thing that I was super focused on when working on this is the decrease in size of the bracelet over the first 5 links. Now you have to look at that in very much detail, because there was an arbitrage to make a year and a half ago when we designed that bracelet. The idea was to say, okay, should we do it with small circular decrease in length, or should we do it sharp and every single decrease is like one straight every single link? And we decided to go with a curved gradient instead of the stepped gradient, even though it was like 1/10 of a millimeter difference, because we did the 2 prototypes. We saw that when you do it with the straight one, it was slightly uneven with every single bracelet. It would have cut costs by around 30% of the entire bracelet, but we were like, you know what, we need to go the full way. We need to do it perfectly curved such that it really fits into the case very, very nicely. And when it rests on your wrist, you really feel like it's super comfortable and super elegant.
A lot of detail too on the case, which is a tambour that has been slimmed down. Mm-hmm. So the bezel has different finishes. The 12 letters that are, from this distance I can barely see it. But also what I think personally is very catchy is the dial. There's a lot of details on the dial. Yeah,
I mean, you talk about the bezel here. Mm-hmm. To me, it was very important that the Louis Vuitton stays on the tambour, the Louis Vuitton inscription on the bezel, but that it was only a signature for the wearer and not a signature for the outside. Beforehand on the tambour, the signature was made such that people from across the room could read Louis Vuitton around your watch. And now I feel like I can't even see it in your hand right now.
Exactly, I can't see yours.
And the idea for us was to really make sure that the wearer could have that signature for himself or herself. Now the case, that was obviously a big part as well. If you notice, the tambour has gotten a little bit slimmer, a little bit...
8 millimeter?
Exactly, 8.1 millimeter.
To be precise, yes.
Exactly, and so the idea behind that was to say we put an inflection point in the middle of the case. Instead of letting the curve go all the way to the bottom, the curve actually starts, let's say 2/3 of the way into the case, and then part of the thickness is like hidden towards the back of the case.
Which makes it even visually even slimmer.
Exactly. So on the wrist, all that part actually sinks into your wrist, and so you feel like the watch is actually like 5.5 to 6 millimeters rather than 8. And the 8 actually trims down from a 13 or 14 that we had before. So all of that really builds towards a product which is super thin, which wears very nicely. And again, with the bracelet and the comfort of the bracelet, you kind of forget on your wrist in a way, and you can't really take it off.
I agree. Quickly about the movement.
So the movement was co-developed by us and the Sac des Horlogers. Mm-hmm. And we really wanted to have that sort of unique LV design language around that movement. why do I say design language? The idea for us was obviously the micro-rotor had that unique LV guilloche pattern, which we created specifically for that micro-rotor, as well as the finishing on the bridges. The finishing on the bridges was something I was very, very focused on as well, making sure that we could get that sort of visual signature without getting into the sort of traditional queue de Genève and anglage that you usually see from other players.
More modern.
Exactly. It's a bit more modern, but still very timeless. I feel like you could see a movement like that in 50 years and still feel like it's within the times, not something that would probably
not fashionable.
Exactly, not fashionable. It's really timeless, trying to get around that. And one thing that, again, was paramount for us was ensuring that the finishing below and the finishing that cannot be seen and only be seen by the watchmaker was as perfect as the one that you see, that the wearer sees. And so it was really important for us to get all of these things right, which is why it took us, over 2 years to develop this watch, iterate, prototype, and make sure that it could be perfect. And to ensure that we had the full package, again, if we go into the luxury sports watch craze, we have to do it right.
A few players in the house that know a bit what they're doing. And the dial is also having a lot of finishing. But again, it's not, except for the name Louis Vuitton, but it's not branded Louis Vuitton with logos or anything that would make it less timeless.
Yeah, and you have to see it in real life to really realize the kind of reflectiveness you get on that dial. There are 5 or 6 different finishings depending on the depth and the different steps that you have on the watch. And that was, multiple different inspirations, from the original Gaia-Lenti watch to all the more modern, mysterious watch that we have. We really took some design cues of stuff that we did historically. I want something new, I want something fresh. And that's a dial that I've never seen in the market before. That's a dial I've never seen at Louis Vuitton before either. And that's very distinctive. You can see it from across the room. The blue one works specifically with that because it feels like you have a gradient finish and the gradient blue, but actually it's unicolored.
But the gray you have in your hand is actually making a whole. It's an entire watch, and it's monochromatic, obviously. It's also very interesting visually. Jean, thank you very much for your answer, for your time, for this beautiful watch. All the success possible for the launch that is coming right now, but I'm not worried about it. It's a beautiful watch. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming.